Hello, everybody. Hello. So today we're going to talk about a topic that will hopefully give you some context. We're going to talk about what you can do, and I'm going to keep it real simple, what you can do when you feel like life is hard, okay? And I find this really helpful because I used to think that pretty much everything was hard. It was just my manner of approach. It was just my perspective. There was a lot of things that made things more difficult because of how I chose to view them, how I chose to manage them, all of that. So I'm going to hopefully simplify some of this for you so that it doesn't have to feel as hard. It doesn't have to be as hard. And if it is really hard, then you can reprioritize so that you can have some relief in the midst of the hard. Okay. So the first thing, and I'm just going to jump right in today. I'm just going to give you a couple of practical things that you can do when you are in a space where you're like, it's just hard. The first thing that I invite you to realize is that a lot of times there is a difference between life actually being hard and life feeling like it's hard. Okay. So for example, today even, I had been battling some allergies. There's this thing in Texas called cedar fever, and it's wild. I've never experienced anything like that. And so it kind of messes with you, or it can make you feel muscle fatigue, tired, foggy, cloudy in your mind, congestion, headaches, just all around not fun. Okay. So I was in that space and just really wanted to sleep in, but knew I needed to get a workout in and just get moving. But it felt hard. Like that felt like something that was so hard to do, when in the bigger picture, in the long run, that's actually not hard. Right? Like that's a privilege. That's something to be grateful for. Good health is something to be grateful for. So the feelings of hard, it's harder to not have good health. It's harder to not be able to work out. It is harder to approach things from a place of resistance than to just decide and make it happen. So that's exactly what I did. I'm like, okay, this won't be that hard. The hardest part is just deciding. I'm going to decide right now. I'm just going to put on workout clothes. We're going to get moving and grooving. I'm going to have some pre-workout. We're just going to make this happen. And sure enough, I went slower today. I was doing a resistance training and a run. So I went slower. Like I really focused on being really intentional with all the resistance training moves. Sometimes I can kind of like anticipate, just rush through things. So I went really slow and just was very intentional. And then on my run, it turned into a walk jog, right? But I still did the same distance. I still took care of myself. I really listened to my body, because I know so many times in my life where I just didn't do that. And it felt really good. And it was a cooler day. It was very quiet and calm. And it was a gift that I just chose to do that. It just shifted the energy. So it was a blessing, but it wasn't actually hard. Feel me? So sometimes we can say, and this could be what it looks like, it just feels so hard. Like I'm going to work and I'm working these like 40 plus hour work weeks. And then I come home and then I got to volunteer. And then I got to take care of the kids. And then I got to make sure the dinner's ready. And then I got to go to the store. And then I got to practice this homework, and then I gotta like do my own schoolwork, and then I gotta work on this side hustle, right? And so we just start going through the motions of things that are actually blessings. We start really, what feeling hard is, in my experience, what it most often is overwhelm. Meaning we've been doing all the things, but we've been doing it in our own strength. We've been just pushing, and there hasn't been any moments of relief. There's been no scheduled time for that. It's just been like, go. And that's not a great way to really live a balanced life. So just want to highlight that, or just invite you to think about that. There are some really hard things, dealing with grief and loss of a loved one, and shock, and being blindsided in some kind of way, like just things that happen in life. There are actually really hard things that we need to create space for, but there's things that we also just feel like that are hard and that we make hard. Okay. So I just invite you to really pay attention to the difference, because sometimes it is in our power to shift that. So if some things are just feeling hard, all right, I'm going to give you some strategies to shift that so that you can feel empowered, so that you can feel more present and more clear and more grateful as you go and really grow through what you go through. Okay. So the first thing is setting aside time to journal. If you've heard me before, it was very life-changing for me because I was told to journal my whole life and I just could not get on that bandwagon. But now I journal all the time. But what really shifted that for me, or really, really helped me, was a woman named Julia Cameron, and she wrote this book called The Artist's Way. And a lot of people miss this, but she has this thing called the morning pages. And the whole concept behind the morning pages is just to literally write out for 3 pages straight what is in your soul. Like, what is on your mind, what's going on in your heart, like what are you emotional about? Just like literally pour it out onto a piece of paper. The idea is not to go back through and read through it and analyze it and poke holes in it or any of that. It's just getting it out, because sometimes that's what we need as a release. We just need to recognize that our voice is valuable, our feelings are valid, but we just need a place to express it, because sometimes we just pent all that up and we just lash out on people in like the most awkward and inopportune times, right? So this is just such a helpful practice just to get it out. So that's one type of journaling. And what I found in hindsight was I started to shift the way I was explaining things or the way I was telling my story into a more, really, it for me went from like a victim story to a empowered story. So rather than venting about all these things, complaining about all these things, I started to get annoyed with that as I was writing every day. I started to catch it and be like, wow, like this is how I'm talking to myself. This is what I feel a lot. Like this is not good. Like I don't want to feel this way anymore. So instead of that, I started to write different. And I had a very different life experience because of that. So that is one type of journaling. Now I will say another type that I like to do a lot is I just do a similar kind of brain dump, but this kind of brain dump is with the intention to identify the problem so that I can invite solutions to come, because I can't fix what I won't face. So what is it that I need to take a look at, right? Like what has been unaddressed? Because our feelings are not good, bad, right, or wrong. They're actually a gift, right? And they just alert us, kind of like any of the lights in your car. They alert us to something that needs attention, right? So the same thing with us. Like usually emotions and being really emotional means that there's something that needs to be addressed. There's something that's gone out of balance, right? So when I am just brain dumping, I usually just make a list of things, because sometimes writing like really long paragraphs and just like going doesn't always flow, but I can make a list. So sometimes just journaling out a list of the things that are on my mind or on my heart, just so that they're not in my head. Right? If I get it out of my head onto paper, then I can work with it. So it could be anything. It could be a situation that happened at work, a relationship strain. It could be a fear of some kind. That's usually what it is. It's leading to overwhelm. Just anything, thoughts, feelings, emotions, things that are on your heart. Just make a list of what those things are. And then usually when you can see it on paper, what I like to do with that is I like to think, okay, what is mine to shift and what is God to shift, right? What's mine, what's God's? And so from the list of problems, I will move things into those categories. This is a God thing because it's too big for me and I can't control it. And this is something that I can address, and here's some ways that I can shift that. And it makes it so much more manageable and so much less overwhelming because I can see it. Like it's all in one place, right? So what I do with things that are for God, I pray about that. I release it, and then I have expectancy and faith that God's going to handle it in a way that is greater than I can think or imagine in this moment. And then with a list for me, the solutions, I then take those and I'll put it on a calendar and I'll make it happen. Like, do I need to call this person? Do I need to have a conversation with this person? Do I need to go to this place? Like whatever the things are to manage whatever is overwhelming to me, then I'll do that. So for example, if you're looking at your list, right? Maybe childcare is a must. Maybe going to the doctor is a must. Maybe taking this day off from work so you can knock out like 8 errands is a must. But really taking a look so that your life can become more manageable. So there's a beautiful step study that's a Christ-centered recovery program, and it's called Celebrate Recovery. And one of their first steps is realize that I'm not God, right? That I'm not in control and that my life has become unmanageable. So this is just looking at your life and all of the areas that have become unmanageable and then delegating them to the right places, and then recognizing what you can control and what you need to release. So that is a really powerful exercise. Those two types of journaling can really knock out a lot of the problem. And if nothing else, they help you see the root of what's really going on inside of you, what you've been bottling up, what you've been walking around with every day, like just smiling at the world, but like dealing with in your soul. You can see it for what it is. And then if you need to then have conversations with people, you can communicate it more clearly because you actually have a sense of what's going on with you, right? So that is a huge exercise. That's number one. Number two would be to legit ask for help. This is something that if you are an independent, if you are self-reliant, if you are a doer, an achiever, a people pleaser, the person that makes it happen, just the one that's got it all together, this is probably one of the most difficult things that you will ever have to do. But humble yourself and the Lord will lift you up, right? A lot of times we don't humble ourselves. We don't ask for help. We don't let people close enough to let them know that we need help, that our life has become unmanageable. And it could be such a gift to somebody else to be able to support you, but they don't know what you're dealing with because you look like you got it all together. So a lot of times sending a text message, calling a friend, getting a therapist, if you have the resources to do so, getting a therapist so that you're just not walking around with these really complex emotions, that you're actually dealing with your soul, right? And you're addressing your internal life because that flows out of you, right? Like you need your inner life to be right in order to really thrive in life. So it's a necessity, not a luxury, right? Whether it is getting childcare, whether it is, having a difficult conversation with a partner or a spouse and letting them know how you can divide and conquer different things that are going on in your life, whether that's having a difficult conversation with a boss, right? A lot of those are happening in this season because folks, particularly with children, having to work from home, homeschool, and just manage life and things that break down and just different things that you need to tend to, it's a lot. And so having a candid conversation and admitting that you don't have it all together and that you actually need maybe half a day so that you can tend to mental health. Every Friday, just work a half day and then spend the other half taking care of yourself. Let that be the day that you go do errands and then you go knock these things out. That doesn't make you a failure or a bad person. That actually garners more respect because you know how to be sensitive to not only your own needs, but of the needs of those around you. So that's really important. Being able to ask for help, whatever that happens to be. That could be a friend, that could be a spouse, a partner. It could be a specialist of some kind, but just making sure that once you've identified what the root is of whatever's going on, that you then take measures to address it so that it's not a problem that's little right now that gets bigger because it's gone unaddressed, okay? And then another thing, number 3, would be, I know a lot of people don't like this, but gratitude and celebration. So a lot of times we do not give ourselves credit for everything that is going well, all of the ways that we have shown up, all of the good things that are actually happening. And we usually get what we focus on. What we focus on grows more in our life. So if we're focusing on problems, strangely enough, we tend to get more to deal with, right? If we're focusing on positive things, we tend to pay attention to how things are working out well for us, how things are flowing well for us, how things always are working out for us, right? Like you're just more aware. That's not to say that life has its ups and downs, twists and turns. It's not a straight path by any stretch of the imagination, right? But what you focus on makes a radical difference between how you think and feel and how you show up, right? Like it just makes a completely different life experience for you and for those around you. So that would be the other thing, is actually take a look at, is everything hard, or like are some things actually easy, or some things actually going well, right? And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's been really valuable. The last thing that I can say is coming up with, I call them the dailies. Okay. I have the daily 5, but coming up with the things that you will do daily just to maintain homeostasis, right? Just to have that like basic, like this is basic level foundation. Okay. Sometimes people need basic. Okay. We don't always need extra. So when you just break everything down to the bare minimum, the bare bones, like what do you need in order to operate optimally, just on like a day-to-day, what do you need? So for example, for me, I need to invest in personal development. I need to renew my mind in the word. I need to read something empowering, inspiring, like fill my cup so that I'm like really starting on the right foot. I need that. I need quiet time and prayer time before I just like fill my life with extra stuff, right? Before I get going on a to-do list, before, you know, social media and something scrolls in front of me, like before any of that, I want to make sure that I'm good, right? That's huge. I move my body every day. I make sure that I'm getting good and clean nutrition into my body. I'm taking my vitamins and supplements, that I'm just drinking a ton of water, particularly in a warmer climate or a humid climate. I'm focusing on being of service and really being present and intentional and taking breaks throughout the day so that I can do that. And then I also focus on gratitude. So those are my 5 to just keep me grounded, because I notice that when I'm not doing my personal development, I'm looking to other people to give that to me, right? Like a partner or friend or something. Like I'm craving something from the outside, when normally if I feed myself, I'm good. That stuff's just extra. So I can really tell that. Or if I'm not working out, I just don't feel strong. I don't feel clear-minded. I don't feel present and energetic and energized and motivated. Like I don't have that same kind of discipline, because how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And then if I'm not eating well, that can just affect everything. That affects energy levels, that affects how I sleep, that affects digestion, that affects metabolism, hormones, just all the things, right? So eating really clean and knowing what actually fuels my body and energizes me and what makes me just kind of like want to go take a nap, huge in terms of being able to produce work and be able to be really present and involved and engaged in the work that I do and intentional with the work that I do. Because I'm not the type of person that just goes through the motions. I don't like showing up like that. So that is huge, right? And then being of service, like that helps me be intentional about things, again, to not go through the motions. So before a meeting, praying for the outcome, or before a meeting, really being intentional about what I can contribute or the value that I can add, right? So not just like showing up and being like, I have to go to a meeting, like actually knowing that I'm contributing here. Like this is not random. This is something that I can show up to. This is what's in my hand that I've been blessed with, and I'm going to work it, right? And not take that for granted, right? Because the things that you have today, other people are praying for. Keep that in mind, right? Or that you were even praying for. And then lastly, gratitude. I have found, as hard as it's been to me, I used to have a very negative mind. Like the inner critic was really, really loud. But when we have a critic that is full of self-hate and just beating ourselves up probably in the context of, we think that's going to make us better. So somebody that was a gymnast, right? Like you're about like perfection, right? Or if you've been trained in athletics, you just need to win all the time, right? So you always are aware of when you don't hit the mark, and that can cause you to be very self-condemning and critical and judgmental. But if you're like that to yourself, then you're like that to other people in your world also, and it's not a good thing for anybody, okay? Like excellence, awesome. Perfection, not so much, right? And then progress, so much better than just achieving things for the sake of achieving them, right? Like, so gratitude was something that took a lot of work for me. You know, and I have a sense that it takes a lot of work for a lot of people, but it's work that is valuable, because when you are grateful for what you have a tendency to attract more things to be grateful for. And so I have found that when there's like a relationship issue, when there's something going on at work, when there's something going on like in my health, like I'm just taking things for granted. I'm overlooking things. I'm not grateful for what I have. Like I've just gotten off the path, so to speak, right? Like I'm not looking at it or perceiving it in the right way. I'm not speaking life into it, right? Or I'm not activating faith. There's more fear and stress, which I choose, right? And then I need to pull back so that I can remember, like, This is a gift, right? None of this is random. This is all working for my good. This is all for me, right? And if I can see it from that way, then I can start really assessing things to genuinely be grateful for and pay attention to that too, right? And sometimes that can come from like this need to like keep up with the Joneses, as they say. So social media can really bring that on, but it is so, so important. Just be grateful for your path and where you're going. Okay. A lot of times it's hard when we're comparing ourselves to other people and feel like we're behind or like we're missing out. And like, who said? Maybe you're exactly where you need to be. Maybe you're right on time, but like the fastest way to slow yourself down is to compare yourself to other people and be ungrateful for what you have. So just keep that in mind. So just to recap, when life is hard, there is a difference between life genuinely being hard and walking through some really hard things and us just feeling like it's hard and choosing to be busy and choosing to be stressed out and choosing to be negative and choosing to make excuses, because that all of those things we do choose. There's another option. Okay. So keep that in mind, because if it is this side where it just feels hard, then there are many practical things that you can do to be solution oriented, to still move forward, to still keep your joy, because know that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Okay. So he wants to kill your peace, he wants to kill your joy, steal your peace, just wreck your life. Right. So when you're aware of that, are you just going to let that happen? Like if you knew that if there was like some sketchy person that's going to come and steal from your home, would you just let them in? No, but sometimes we do that with the enemy, right? Like we take the bait on a thought or some sort of thing happens and we get offended for no reason. Like it's not even necessary, right? Like in the grand scheme, not necessary. So the greatest gift is to not give that stuff your attention, right? So being really, really aware of when life is genuinely hard, I need to conserve energy so that I can deal with the hard and create space to manage the hard and to grieve the hard or walk through whatever is hard, right? But when I just feel like life is hard, that usually is overwhelm and an invitation for me to reprioritize things. So if there's things that are too heavy for me to carry, what actually is a priority and something that I want to or need to carry, and what can I just release for right now? Right? A lot of times the world glorifies doing all the things, but sometimes you just really need to focus on the one thing and do the one thing well, and then add as you're ready. Okay. So here it is, just as a reminder. Number one is journaling, whether that's doing the morning pages and just brain dumping 3 pages and just having a consistent journaling activity just so you can get it out and just go through that process of just creating space for yourself and showing up to a blank page and just telling your story, right? Or creating a list of the things that are actually going on, because a lot of times we don't even recognize it. We just let things build. So just getting it out, making a list, if that's all you can come up with, and decide what is it that you can deal with and what is it that God is going to deal with. Okay. And then working through that list and moving whatever is yours to deal with onto your calendar and making it happen in practical steps that are just simple. All right. Number 2 is asking for help. A lot of times we don't do that and we genuinely need help. So do not feel guilty about it. Do not be ashamed. Humble yourself and the Lord will lift you up. So ask for help. All right. Number 3 is to celebrate the wins and to be aware intentionally. Create space to be grateful, whether that's calling a friend and just sharing things that you're grateful and having that practice together. That could be a really great blessing for somebody. But having a practice where you actually are accounting for everything that is going well, things that are going easy, things that you are grateful for. Go for a walk with a friend and just talk about those things, right? Like you will be so moved by how much better you feel after just doing that. And that's simple. That takes what, an hour? Maybe 30 minutes? It's not a huge deal, right? And we need those things. We need those things. It's not good just to be pushing all the time. And for what? For what? Is that giving your best to your world? Probably not, right? So you need rest. So it's really important to find the things that are still practical and productive, but are really refilling and just fueling you. Okay. And then come up with this is the last thing, number 4, come up with whatever your dailies are. I just shared my daily 5. Come up with yours, with what yours are, because those are really helpful for you to manage your boundaries, to know when you need to say no, to know when you can say yes, to know what to prioritize, to know what to just set down for a minute and then revisit it when the time is right. It really helps you with decision making, which is so, so important, because sometimes when things are just left unattended to, it can feel overwhelming. But if you decide where each thing is going to go and what you can and can't handle right now, then you don't have to feel bad about it. You can actually be very unapologetic, and you can show up and just be transparent. And people really do appreciate that and will honor that, right? I mean, and if they don't, then those probably aren't your people, and you should know that sooner rather than later anyway. Okay, so hopefully these are some really practical things that you can do to shift whatever is up for you in your life when you are feeling like life is hard. Because there is a difference between when life is legit hard and when we just feel like it's hard. So know the difference and really act accordingly, right? Because you are meant to have and enjoy your life in abundance to the full until it overflows. But we don't often choose that life. And a lot of times that life isn't possible apart from God. So I just want to open that up too. Sometimes I know is true for me. The more overwhelmed I feel, the more fearful I feel, the more critical I feel, the more yucky I feel, or like whatever ugly stuff is coming up for me. When I am in those spaces, usually it's because I haven't been seeking God. I haven't had my quiet time. That is something that I put on the back burner. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Like if I'm not connected to the vine, what makes me think that I'm going to flourish? I have no power, right? Like that's like your phone not being plugged in for more than 24 hours. The phone's gonna die, right? There's like so much activity happening on your phone every day. Just check the activity report, right? So imagine that, like that's your phone. Imagine you as a human. There's so much activity that's happening. Where are you feeding your soul and recharging? So for me, I'm very aware of like, that's what I need, and by any means necessary. So usually that's getting up earlier, that's saying no to meeting up with people, that's setting actual dates on my calendar that are non-negotiable me time, that's turning off social media and putting my phone on airplane mode so I'm not even tempted to scroll. So many things to help me turn down the noise and literally just focus on what is needed and the bare minimum. And then as I'm ready, I can add things. So sometimes too, and this is just a bonus, but you can also do a detox of some kind. So I know that I practice prayer, meditation, fasting, and I will do different times as I'm led to do that, inspired to do that. A lot of times they're anywhere from 7 to 21 days. Sometimes they're longer, but I find that having time set aside to even just do like a liquid fast, really have the intention to be very prayerful and just seek the Lord on things that are up for me in my life, and just spend less time being available to what's going on in the world, right? Just so that I can refuel. A lot of times I do this kind of in this season or even at the start of a new year, to really just be intentional and clear, to get revelation, to get wisdom and understanding and clarity, and just connect and like find my rhythm again so that I can do things with integrity. Because I don't think that we can really do things with integrity if we're not constantly checking in, right? So at any rate, that could be a bonus for you too. And you can do some research on, if you want to do a fast, if you just want to detox, you know, you could just do a social media detox for a period of time. You could do a TV or just like media detox in general, right? So like when you're in your car, you're not listening to the radio or you're not watching the news for 21 days. That would be a miracle, right? Or just whatever it happens to be, like it's going to be something that you're inspired to do. But a lot of times if you're having trouble making priorities and letting things go, that reveals so much. When you just get down to the bare minimum, right? You have a lot to be grateful for that you've probably not been grateful for. And you can really see how you've actually been spending all of your time and energy and how it's been hard. And a lot of times it's not so much life, it's how we've been handling it and carrying it. And the word says that God's yoke is easy and his burden is light. So come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. So if we really trust that and put our faith in that and stand on that promise, we really approach life differently, and God will give us wisdom. God will give us strength, right? To handle what is truly ours to handle. So that's really powerful. And then also God leads in ways of pleasantness and peace. So there's alerts in your life, anything that's not very pleasant or peaceful, like check it out. And sometimes too, like we might like to blame a boss. Okay, well, cool. You can't change your boss, right? So how much time, energy, emotion do you want to actually spend judging them and criticizing them, right? Or do you just want to do the things that you're genuinely able to do and leave it at that? Like, don't get caught up in all the extra, like that frees up time and energy, right? Or this can happen too, like in a relationship with a partner, we want them to show up a certain kind of way. Well, what are you doing, right? Like take a look at you first. Like what kind of thoughts are you putting into that relationship? What are you speaking over that relationship? What is your general vibe about that relationship? Like maybe check on what's going on with you, because a lot of times there's some key issue that's something that you and this partner can talk about, but you're just lashing out at them instead and making a bigger issue. See what I'm saying? So all of this to say, you got to start with you, and you've just got to create more space for you, and you've got to have just buffers of time that can help you refuel and fill up your cup and just align. And I know that we're going to say that we don't have time, but sometimes that does require getting up earlier or staying up later, because some of the biggest shift can happen in just 15 minutes of time, or 5 minutes in your car, or just praying throughout your day and being in constant conversation with God. There is always something. There's always a next step. And that's how God leads, one day at a time and one moment at a time. Okay, one step at a time. So you get the drift. I hope this was helpful, guys. I think that just accepting life is hard. My encouragement is that you don't have to. You don't have to approach life as hard. It usually is what we decide it's going to be. And if you choose joy, joy is a choice, right? The word says that the joy of the Lord is our strength, right? We choose joy in the moments where it's easiest not to be joyful. I still choose to put on joy, right? I still choose to praise. I still choose to be thankful. I still choose hope. I still choose faith in God. Maybe I'm wavering in faith in myself, but I'm going to keep my faith in God and trust that He's going to give me what it is that I need. He knows everything that I have need of before I even ask. He has a solution to every problem before I even encounter it, right? So I can choose these things. Is it easy? No, but eventually you start to train yourself, right? Because we're going to keep experience life as hard if that's what you choose, but it doesn't have to be that way. So that's my encouragement to you on today is choose how you want to live your life. Don't just accept hard. Yes, there's going to be things that are hard to deal with and are very difficult and really uncomfortable to walk through, but you will get through it, and it's not permanent. And you've still been given this gift of life, and that's not random, right? And you get to choose how you live each day, one day at a time and one moment at a time. All right? All right, guys, if you could use some self-mastery work, sometimes getting to the root of what's going on the inside of us is very complex, and it just helps having somebody that's an expert in that area. If you need help with that, I have a self-mastery course over at julianapage.com that you can go check out. I also have launched a spirit-led business. It's called Spiritual CEO. It's for anybody that is feeling that stir. They're finally ready to launch into that thing that they're called to. So I love helping people in this stage of their life. So I have a couple of programs that you can also go find on julianapage.com. And if you like messages like this, make sure that you subscribe so that you can get an alert over here on this channel anytime a new video is available. And you can also tune into the Spirit-Filled Real Talk podcast with Juliana. I have a new episode every Saturday. So if you're in the car, if you're cruising, instead of listening to the radio, you can get some food for your soul. All right? All right, guys, until